Seeing lots of people coming from all over the country. I'm so excited. My name is Sani, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I'm noticing lots of people from snowy places. Right now, I'm in Nashville. No snow yet, but possibly tonight. So thrilled to be here with you guys. I can't believe it's 2024. This is our first singer sewing Michael's Zoom class for 2024, and we are getting ready to have a full load of different classes this year. So really thrilled to be here with you. I have two helpers from Singers. So one is Bethany. Some of you maybe have seen Bethany before on these Zoom classes. She is going to be answering questions, and Amy, also from Singer, she'll be dropping information. If you have questions about machines or product, Amy can help us get different things for you for that as well. So I don't want to take too much more time. I want to get started because a lot of you have signed up about needles and feet and that sort of thing. But I do want to give you a little heads up that the first 3 months of 2024, Singer is going to be doing a Zoom class every week rather than every month. So we've got a lot of content planned for you. Today we're talking about needles and feet. Next week, Bethany's going to be doing a little needle booklet for you. So like how to make a little needle booklet to keep your needles safe. And then Amanda Tadaro the next week is going to be doing some things with garment construction. And finally, we're starting a 3-part series on quilting. So guys, keep an eye out. There's a lot going on. So we're really thrilled to have a lot of stuff to help you with your sewing journey with Singer. So as you all are coming together, I hear the class is actually through Michael's, and we are with Singer, we are supporting Michael's because we love that they have our products in their stores and on the internet. So we want to help you become more successful when you do purchase a machine from Michael's. So that's why we want to do this, and we work together with Michael's with that. So one other little thing that I just want to ask, because again, a lot of people are here jumping on the Zoom. How many of you, and just put it in the chat if you want to share, did get a new sewing machine for Christmas? I know a lot of people did. We were talking earlier with some of the earlier people, and a lot of people got a new sewing machine for Christmas, right? And so that's maybe why you want to learn a little bit more about what's going on with needles and with different things. So we're going to start with needles today. And why I say we're going to start with needles is because needles with any sewing machine, super important for you. We're going to drop in the chat. This is the little project write-up that we had when you signed up. So if you actually did print this out, please note that as I go through and talk, there's places in here that you can actually write notes on. So you might want to take a couple notes. If you did not print this out, then just take some notes down. Grab a piece of paper right now, because there's going to be a lot of information that we're going to go through. The other thing we're going to put in the chat for you, and this is actually, it's a big file if you're going to download this, but guys, this is a wonderful reference guide. It's called the Needle Guide, but it has so much good information in here, meaning like, I just want to, like, what are some of the different information on your, with your Singer needles? And what are the different pieces? There's so, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm slipping around a little bit, but different information about this. What are the different needle types? We're going to go through this, but I know that sometimes if you're like me, you like that reference, right? So go ahead and make sure you don't have to print out the whole thing, but if you download it, you can have this good information for you. So let's get started. I'm going to start talking about needles. And when we talk about needles, guys, there are a couple things that are really important. And this is kind of might be what you want to start writing down. The first thing when you look at a needle box or a needle, something like this, and I'm just going to do this. Can you all see that okay? I see a couple of people. Hopefully you can see this okay. There are, when you look here, it's going to say like a type of needle, universal, and then a size of needle. Can you see it says 9014? Y'all see that?
Connie, I just
Yes.
wanted to say, with this camera that you're using right here, it's actually backwards on our end.
Oh,
The words are, so maybe if you hold it up in front of the camera that's in front of the sewing machine, the words might not be backwards on that
those
camera.
wonderful technical issues. I'm going to try one more thing.
Right, there you go.
Did
Oh,
that help?
perfect. Now we
All
can read
right.
it.
All right. Sorry about that,
Okay.
everybody. I was just testing you. It's 2024. We can read backwards now, right?
Yes,
So
feels like
there
it.
we go.
Thank you.
All right. So now, hopefully you can see, I can't see now, but it says universal and a number. The first word that you see on any needle like this, that's the style of needle. The second, the numbers are the size of needle. So when you're looking at needles for a project, you need the style and the size. Okay, y'all with me on that? So with style and size, there are lots of different ones, but you're going to choose the style for the type of fabric and then the size for the weight of fabric. Okay, so again, writing stuff down, style is for the type of fabric and then the size is for the weight of the fabric. All right. Now, I went through that really quick with you, and I'm going to give you some fabric choices and different things like that. So I'm going to show that to you. But if nothing else, if you remember nothing else, you need to change your needle relatively frequently. And we say every 8 to 10 hours of sewing time. I got to tell you guys, when I start a project and I come to my sewing machine, right? And I'm working on the Singer M3400 today. I sat down to it. I work on lots of different machines, right? I sat down to this machine and I'm like, when did I change a needle last? The first thing I did was I changed a needle. Because if you don't have a nice sharp needle, your stitches will not, I say this, I'm very strong when I'm very passionate about this, guys, but your stitches may not come out as you expect, right? So make sure you have a new needle when you start a project and again with the fabric, okay? So I am going to change now to a different camera so you can see things a little bit closer. And I'm just going to switch over to this camera here. And I'm going to zoom in just slightly. All right. So when we talk about needles, and I tried to do this so you can see a little bit, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but these are all the same type of needle, different size. So if you kind of look at it, this one here, that one is actually a size 70-10. It's a smaller needle. The smaller the number, the smaller the needle. 80-12, and if you're wondering what the difference between what 70-10 and 80-12, what the two numbers mean, one is like an English system, one is a Japanese system, right? So, or it really is like a Far East system. So don't worry that there are two numbers. Just know that the smaller the number, so 70 is a smaller needle. This one is over 100. This is a 110 by 18. So again, using a larger needle for heavier fabrics, 80-12, everyone, 80-12. And I see some of you are writing, so I appreciate that. I'm a note taker too. 80-12 is the most average size needle. So I'm going to flip back. So again, 80-12, that's your average. Smaller is like for lighter weight fabrics and larger for heavier weight fabrics. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going back. Hopefully I won't be zooming too much to make you guys too woozy. But now, okay, so Bethany, is this correct on the screen? Are these
Yes,
correct
it
on the
is.
screen? It
You're
is,
good.
okay. So a universal needle in a size 80-12, universal size 80-12, if you're talking average, that is average. So universal 80-12 is basically average. When you look at a universal needle in the fabric use, and this is directly from the chart, but it's easier to see this actually than to see the needles, I think. Woven, natural, and synthetic fabrics, but really this is the type of needle, universal needle is what you're going to use with woven fabrics. Now, for any of you who are super new to sewing, and I think some of you may be, and again, some of you, it might be super new to you. A woven fabric, oh, let me get a different color fabric so you can see. All right, so woven fabric, everybody, the pieces come together and they ravel. You can see, if I pull that, can you see how that's kind of raveling away? A woven fabric has it's woven, so it has the pieces of thread coming together. And that's why you often see woven fabrics, they will ravel away. Woven fabrics come in different weights. In this one, which this is a very fine fabric, but you can kind of see it here on the background. See how it's fraying? Those are the pieces that are fraying away. Super lightweight fabrics like this, that type of fabric, that type of woven fabric, you would use a universal size 70 or 60 less. So I hear someone saying the picture is blurry. Is that true? Is that, or are we doing okay?
It's
Is it
okay.
Yeah,
It's just when you hold up the font, like the
oh, okay.
paper, it's fine, but sometimes with the fabric, with it moving, it gets a
Yeah,
little blurry, and that's just
okay.
kind of part of being a
Yeah, I
live
just want to make
stream.
sure we're doing okay.
We're
But
okay. We can
see
still
how
see.
fine this is. Super lightweight fabrics like this, like chiffons that are woven, this is like a very small needle. So there are even 60 needles or 70 needle for something woven like this in universal. So again, the type universal because it's woven. The weight of the fabric is a smaller size. I pulled out, we already looked at this. This is just your normal, I would say, cotton quilting fabric, and or just cotton fabric for pillows, different things like this. This type of fabric, guys, 80-12. So this is, again, when people talk about average, universal 80-12, this is just your average stuff. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to hold it next to this. Again, white fabric, I understand is hard to see, but linens, again, the weight of this fabric and the weight of this fabric are basically the same, although one is a linen and one is a cotton. They're both woven. So what do you think I'm going to tell you? I'm going to tell you basically universal 80-12 for this kind of weight. So style is woven, universal. I keep saying it, but I want you to get this in your head. Style is universal because it's woven. And then the weight is 80-12 because it's like an average weight. Similar thing with this beautiful silk that I have. Can you guys see this? This is a woven silk. And I see someone 90-14, certainly you could use for this, depending again on the weight of the fabric. I personally I always try to use the smallest needle that I can get away with, honestly. It doesn't mean that that's right or wrong. What it means is it makes a little bit smaller hole in the fabric, right? But 90-14 works just fine for this. But then you also have woven fabrics that are like denims. And universal needles are fine if you have kind of a medium, not a super heavyweight denim fabric. you can use universal needles. There are denim needles, everybody, but I usually use a denim needle. Well, I'll talk about denim needles in a minute. All right. Okay, so I know there's been a lot of things going through the chat. Are there any questions on the type of fabric for universal needles and kind of how the weights work, right? Any specific questions for
I
that?
don't see any that are like super specific. I think we've kind of answered a lot of them. But maybe just kind of reiterate, like, the lower the needle number, the lighter weight fabric, right?
Yeah.
So maybe kind of review those sizes one more time and the fabric weight, and that we should be good.
Yeah, so when it's going to be the same for the styles. So again, universal needles, you have super lightweight fabrics. You can see through that, right? So super lightweight fabrics. That's going to be your 60 or 70 weight needle or size needle, excuse me. For your medium fabrics, and I appreciate, the person who said 90-14, because a lot of people will use 90-14 needles as well. But for kind of your medium weight fabrics, 80-12 or 90-14. And then finally, when you get to that denim, the heavier weight denims, that's when you're going to use, I tend to use a 90-14 for this weighted denim. It's not a super heavy denim. You can kind of see that. Or a 116. Okay. So this is kind of where where we start is with universal needles.
And Sonny, can we maybe just remind people, and this is kind of how I like to think of it, is like the bigger the needle, the bigger the hole it's putting in the fabric.
Yep,
So
that
is also kind of how I think of, like, if I'm using a very delicate fabric, I don't want a really big hole to put through my fabric, but with like a thicker denim, I'm going to need a bigger hole to get the thread through the fabric because it's a thicker fabric. So that's kind of another way that I kind of visually think about it. And that might help some people who are getting a little confused about the weight of their fabric and which needle to choose.
I
And this
think
is
that,
also why we do test sews or test stitches too, right?
yep, that is exactly true. And I see someone asking about 80-11. I don't know why sometimes it says 80-11, but that is your medium. 80-11, 80-12, that's really close to the same. So I think 80-11 is just a fine needle to work with. Again, as Bethany said, the bigger the needle, the bigger the holes. So you really want to, I like to keep the holes in the fabric smaller. And so I just try to use a smaller needle if possible, but sometimes you can't. So it is, again, it's just really you have to test, you want to try different things. But the larger the number, larger the needle, smaller the number, smaller the needle. And that's really the easiest way to think about it.
Sonny, we have a great question, and you might have a fun tip on how to keep up with us. How do you tell what size your needle is if it's already in the machine?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky actually. Most needles, and this is where I know you won't be able to see this, guys, but most needles, and I have a magnifying glass, they actually have the number is on the shank. So the number is usually written here or on the back, but it's hard to see. So you almost really need a magnifying glass to see that. But that's how they almost every single needle is going to have that number somewhere written there. And then Bethany put in the chat, but next week we're going to be doing a needle booklet. So you can actually, if you take it out, your needle's still good. If you take it out, you can put it in and kind of have a little label. You can put a piece of tape or something and have a label for the number of needle that you have there. It's not easy to see, guys. I have my glasses on, as you can tell, but I also have a magnifying glass to be able to see that. All right. All right, so we talked about universal woven fabrics. That's what a lot of us get started with. But now, let's say, and I'm just swinging around here, let's say we're now getting ready to move on and actually work a little bit with knit fabrics. So with knit fabrics, you can use a universal needle, but sometimes you're not going to get the best results with a universal needle on knits. So let's flip back to our other camera. This is where ballpoint needles come into play. Okay, so ballpoint needles. What this is the needle itself in general is the same. It's the very tip that is a change. The tip, as you can imagine, because it's called ballpoint, these are perfect for knit fabrics. And what it does is it won't catch on the fibers in the knits. So it's a more rounded tip to the needle. Does that make sense? Okay, so with the ballpoint needle, the sizing, everybody, remains the same. So meaning lighter weight, smaller number, heavier weight, heavier number. So ballpoint is your style for knits. The size is for the weight of the fabric, just like what we've done before, right? So size and weight. So I pulled a few different knits. This is again another, and I'm going to come back here for just a minute. I'm going to ask you guys another really quick question. If I say knit and I say woven, do you know what that means? I see some of you shaking your heads, yes. Some of you maybe, maybe not. No, okay. So yes, no, yes. All right. So remember when I showed you, when we were over here with the woven fabrics, right? So here's my woven fabric. You can see, especially like on this piece of denim, how the pieces there are, oh, I'm sure that got really fuzzy for those of you who were saying it was fuzzy before, but there are pieces of thread that are going this way and this way that weave and make a woven piece of fabric. And that you can really tell it's woven because again, you can see those pieces on the edge are just pulling, you know, those are the up down pieces. And then the other ones are the left right pieces. That's your woven. The knit fabric, I'm going to try and do it with this camera. Can you see there's nothing pulling on an edge? It's actually, how many out there are knitters? Do you actually knit? There are a few of you that knit. Think about a knit fabric as what you are creating when you're knitting. You're putting the pieces in and out. And knit fabrics are what have the stretch, right? Because that's, if you think about a sweater, right? Think about a sweater knit. That's exactly what a knit fabric gives you, is like a sweater knit look. Okay. So does that kind of, yeah, you can see, yeah, you can certainly see the chains, right? In the fabric. So this is a lightweight knit fabric. And sometimes maybe I'll just stay here because I think you can see this really well. This is going to be the ballpoint needle. Remember, that's the style, is because it's a knit. It's a ballpoint needle. And then the size for this would be 70-10. It would be smaller, right? So there are wovens that have some stretch. The big difference with a woven, if you pull on the diagonal, that will give stretch, but sometimes wovens have a little stretch, but look for those pieces that are, you know, coming out the edges for woven fabrics. Knits will not have that. Knits will not ravel like that. All right, so that's your lightweight. It's a tricot is what this particular fabric is called. And it is again, a stretchy fabric. There are jersey knits. Think about your t-shirt knits, everybody. Think about your t-shirt knit. This is a jersey knit. You cannot kind of see the channels as much, but this one has a two-way stretch, right? That's a knit fabric. It's not going to ravel on those edges. You can see that, right? It's not raveling. So that's really what makes the difference. This one, yes, cottons can, Margaret, I appreciate that. Knit fabrics can be cotton. They can be rayon. They can be, you know, they can even have, you can have silk knit fabrics, wool knit fabrics. Same thing with wovens. The fiber is not what makes the difference. The difference really is in how it's created. Like again, this one has those channels. This is a lighter weight, but it's not as light as the Tricot. So this is like an 80-12. This is the 80-12, or for some of you, 90-14. Those, again, style knit, size, how heavy the fabric is. Okay. And I do have like some sweatshirt knits, some of the heavier sweatshirt knits. This is definitely going to be something that is a 90-14 or even that 116, a little bit heavier. And see how that's, this is not not much of a two-way stretch, but see how you can see how it's thicker, right? So again, making sure style, ballpoint for knits, it's going to give you better results. And then the size is going to be the weight of the fabric. And, you know, sometimes I have to laugh at myself. And the reason why is I pulled all this stuff out of my stash so I could show you this. What I might suggest to you is go into your stash and see what you have and start feeling it and going, oh, this is super lightweight. That would be a smaller, needle. And this one is more medium weight and this one's heavier weight. And kind of have those in a little like catcher, a little booklet, so you can see what is it. Yeah, I bet you some of you have a stash like mine. So I want you to make sure to go back and do that. And one other thing before I move on from I'm looking at the time a little bit. I knew there would be a lot of great questions. If you look here, this is actually an old sweater that I cut up and was using it for different things. So you can even use those sweater knits. And that again is a knit. Remember, it's not raveling. So because it's not raveling, I know, and you can see those channels that this is a knit, and I'm going to use a ballpoint needle. All right. So knits, ballpoint needles, super important. So I see some questions coming through, but basically I see someone's building their stash. I think that's great. Any questions on ballpoint needles? You good?
No, I think we're good. For me, it's just the ballpoint needle is going to prevent it from catching on those loops of those knit fabrics, because it's more of a loopy weave of the fabric versus a woven. So
yeah, and the ballpoint actually moves around the loops versus cutting loops, where a universal can catch on those loops. So that is a great way to think about it. All right, so that was your ballpoint needle. There are a couple other, and I think you can see these better here. There are a couple other specialty needles, and one of those specialty needles is a denim needle. Remember, I mentioned you could use a universal needle for denim. However, denim needles, this is important. So if you are again taking notes, denim needles themselves are a sharp pointed needles. With denim needles, because the denim is so tightly woven, this will actually cut the fibers versus, as Bethany was saying, the ballpoint needle won't cut the fibers because it's round, got a round tip. Universal doesn't, it's a semi-rounded tip, but this will give you, this will cut fibers, and it will also give you the straightest stitch. If you're looking for something to have a super straight stitch when you're sewing on any woven or on denim, this is the needle for you, right? And I'm going to try. I already showed you earlier, this is a very lightweight denim. It's like almost like a chambray shirt. Can you see how easily that goes? That you can use an 80-12 denim needle. You can use a 90-14 denim needle, and it will give you a very straight stitch with that needle. This, on the other hand, I'm going to show my age when I say this, guys. Some of you may remember with me the old, like old Levi's 901 jeans or those 801 jeans. If you know those, that's this fabric. Notice how it doesn't like let me crush. This definitely needs a denim needle. Something heavy like this, canvas. If you're working on canvas, denim needles are great. And really with a denim needle, and I see someone asking about good for sewing on badges, things like that. Yes, denim needle would be great for that because that's, again, that sharp point that will go through things. But again, denim needles have different sizes. So this is at least a 90-14. I might even put that 100. So hopefully, I'm going to come back. Hopefully what you guys are realizing and seeing when we're talking about this is I'm choosing, this is what I'm going to work on today. So I'm going to work on this denim fabric today. And so what needle goes with this? If you make your needle go with your fabric, guess what that does for you is it also makes you change your needle, right? So that's a really good habit to get into is what needle do I need for the fabric and for the project that I'm doing? Okay. And there's one other specialty needle, and I'm just going to, well, no, I'm going to show back to this camera. One other specialty needle that I want to talk about, and that is the leather needle. Leather needles, everyone, I'm going to say this kind of jokingly, but leather needles are misunderstood. And the reason why I say they're misunderstood is leather needles should only be used with real leather. If you have, so like if you're working on true skins, this is, you know, this is like a little bit of leather that I had around the house. That sounds, it's just, I had this little bit of leather in my stash. It's a real leather. And the reason, again, real leather, you should use a leather needle. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. I pulled out a leather needle. So let me see if I can show it to you enough. I really don't know that I can. Let me try zooming in just a little bit more for you. It's super hard to see, but I want you to look at that tip while I'm turning this. Leather needles have, it's more of a wedge tip, and it creates a little, like if you understand when I say it's got like a little 3-point tear is how a leather needle works. And with leather needles in regular fabrics, it's going to rip the fabric, whereas the skin, a real leather will actually fold back up around the thread when you're using a leather needle. If you're using a fake leather, you should use a ballpoint needle on fake leather. Okay, so this is a suede. This is a manufactured suede. And with this suede, I would never use that leather needle because that will tear it. Never use that. You only want to use, that's why I said it kind of is misunderstood. You should only use a leather needle. Oh, sorry. Now that really is blurry for whoever said that earlier. I apologize for that. Maybe I can do that. There we go. Stop moving. Only use that leather needle when you are using real leather. All right. Any questions on this? Any questions? I say, is denim what I use for making pillows with upholstery fabric? Either I like denim needles because they're sharper. I guess with upholstery fabric, it's tightly woven. Think denim needles, super tightly woven fabrics. So yes, that would work. Otherwise, just a larger universal. I think Bethany said that as well. But the denim needle is going to have the sharp point and it's going to cut your fibers. So if it's loosely woven, you don't want to use a denim needle because you don't want to cut those fibers. All right. All right. Other questions for me? I see faux leather, ballpoint. Again, if it's very fine faux leather, use a 9014, otherwise 116 for heavier faux leather. But again, weight and style. So think about the style first, and then how heavy is your fabric, okay? Proper denim needle when hemming jeans, but I still have problems sewing over folded seams. There are, so sorry, it's hard to talk to you guys and then also look at the chat. So when you're sewing over, when you're sewing over a denim seam, there are a couple different ways to do that. There are tools out there that are called hump jumpers, but the biggest thing when you're sewing over some sort of denim seam is you're sewing up and you've got this big seam that's stopping you. What you need to do is stop, put your needle down, and then put something underneath your presser foot to make sure that your presser foot is at the same height. Because what's happening is when you're coming up to that, the needle is deflecting, it's bending, and it's actually breaking at that point. So that's why you come up, you stop before you get, this is my seam, you stop before you get to the seam, put something underneath the back of the foot to make your presser foot even with the seam, and then let it go. That kind of makes sense to you? We may have to, you know, we can take down a couple notes, maybe next time or in a future showing or future video Zoom, we can actually do something like that. But the whole point is, if you're trying to get up over it, that needle is going to deflect. If you raise your presser foot with something behind, put it back down, and then start sewing, it'll even out. Okay.
Connie, we have Amanda doing a class later this month on some denim sewing tips. And I think this is one of the things she's going to be talking about, is getting over those bulky seams. So that could be an opportunity for you to come back and see that visually in person.
Yeah.
And I also did a video tutorial that's over on Singer's YouTube channel back in August. So you're going to have to scroll back a little bit, but it's also on denim tips. And I showed this exact technique and what to put under the foot to level it out. So you can check that out as well. I'll go find it and see if I can drop it in the chat real quick.
There are different feet you can use. I saw someone say put cardboard underneath. There are tools. I don't know that there are other tools that we call this a multi-tool. You know, there are other tools around that you can, you know, put underneath, but it's all about making sure that you're not going up and over, right? You're going at the same level. So, all right. So now we are like, we're at, my time, I'm 12:38. So we're 38 minutes in. I want to talk a little bit now about the presser feet, because I got to tell you guys, I've sewn my whole life. I started sewing when I was in 4-H when I was 8 years old. Many of you are probably like that, or, you know, you started sewing in home ec. And whenever we started sewing, we had one, you know, there were lots of presser feet. I call it the bag of metal that we all find in our sewing machine somewhere. And it's like, okay, what are these feet for? I never use them. And you put them aside. The presser feet that come with your machine, as well as others that you can purchase, are really, really like extra tools. Think about if you're a woodworker. You know, you have different tools that you use for different things when you're woodworking. In the kitchen, you don't use one spoon for everything. You have a slotted spoon, you have a whisk, you have whatever. That's kind of what the presser feet are like. Okay, so that's kind of like what the presser feet are like. So I'm going to try and do this in a good way for you guys. I'm going to come back to my sewing machine now. So you are going to see a few different things. We're going to talk about different presser feet and why some are going to be just essential for you, some that you have and some that you may want to think about in the future. All right, so that's our next step. And why I had to laugh a little bit. If you did actually get the project and do that, if you see that, needles, feet, and stitches, oh my. For any of you who think about the Wizard of Oz, that's what I was thinking about, is lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Well, this is same feeling. There's so much out there. There's so many different things. So let's go ahead. We're going to come back to the machine, but I'm going to open this, zoom out just a little bit first. There we go, about there. And hopefully everyone can kind of see what's going on here. The first presser foot that we are going to talk about is really the presser foot that comes with your sewing machine. And that presser foot can be called all sorts of different things, but in general, this is the, I should have learned from the needles. There we go. Can you all see that now that I've stopped moving? That presser foot is the normal sewing foot. And how I know that this is a normal foot, it actually isn't from the front, it's from the back. Can you, I want you to look, and if you have your presser feet, that was one of the things that we did right. If you have your presser feet around, you're going to see this. It's probably on your machine. But this foot, it has a little groove right here. See how when I flip that, you can see there's a little groove, but then the foot flattens out. Y'all see that, right? So when you see that, that means that this is your normal sewing foot, because when you start sewing, you want this flat area for regular seaming. Okay, so you want the flat area for regular seaming. So I'm just going to snap that on. And one other thing, every machine comes with some extra feet. Some come with others. I dumped most of mine out here, right? So I've got all of my feet that came with my machine in my little bowl right here. But sometimes I have other feet, they're over here on the other side. So I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. When you are sewing, and just because we took so much time, all right, so we took so much time on needles, which was fabulous. What I want you to realize is I do have, and I'm going to set up for just a regular straight stitch, I do have an 80-12 universal needle in here for what I'm going to show you today, because I'm going to be sewing a lot on woven fabrics. So that's the universal. And what I want to do, and I know I'm going to try and keep my hand away, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit here now. When you are sewing with regular fabric, this is just a little cotton fabric. When you're sewing with regular fabric, I'm going to go ahead and start. What you don't want to happen is you don't want this fabric back here and the fabric in here to actually go down into your machine. If any of you have ever had that happen, you know it's a really bad feeling and it's no fun. So by using a normal sewing foot, it won't let the fabric go down underneath, okay? So I just wanted you to see, that's the whole reason why, I don't know if you can hear me with the machine going, but that's the reason why when you're sewing like that, and I just did just a quick little seam. So just a quick little seam here. The stitching looks nice because it's held nice and flat. Okay, so it's held nice and flat with the presser foot. So normal sewing, normal straight stitching, you really want to use your normal or your standard sewing foot. There are other feet that I want to show you that help you with different things. So this is my standard sewing foot. If you know you're going to be doing a lot of straight stitching, okay, I'll come back to the thread here in just a moment. Okay, I can't see your name, but I will come back to thread in just a moment. But this particular foot, see how it just has a single needle? It doesn't have an opening. Let me do this. see how this one has a wider opening for zigzagging. This one is straight stitch only. If you're using super silky fabric, do you guys remember at the very beginning when we talked about universal and I had that see-through fabric? A straight stitch foot, if you're straight stitching, this is a great thing for those super silky fabrics. So think about that. For those of you who are quilters, again, the 1/4 inch foot with a straight stitch, it has the same thing. It's got that flat back. So all of these feet have this really nice flat back, so my fabric will not like get pushed down into the machine. And then the last foot, this actually is one of my favorite feet. I realized that I can't sew straight. When I was in 4-H, my 4-H leader told me I couldn't sew straight. And she also told me that I would never be a seamstress. Well, haha to her, right? But here's the thing. This little gauge, this is called the Sew Easy foot. See how it moves? This allows you to be successful. Oh, if I would have only had a foot like this, right? So this is a standard sewing foot. It's got that nice flat area back here. Standard sewing foot. But there you go. It's got a nice guide for you. So this does not come with most machines, but it is something that you can get from Michael's, and it's a great addition to your toolbox. Okay, so that's just something to think about for you. All right, so my standard sewing foot has got this nice flat back edge. But what happens, okay, so what happens, I'm going to stay straight for a moment. Can you see how these stitches are super close together? And then I've got all these decorative stitches over here. Depending upon your machine, you may have more or less decorative stitches than what I do. But what happens if you use a standard sewing foot without a groove underneath is when you get to a stitch like this, the machine stops sewing. Is there anyone out there that has ever had your machine just stop and just keep sewing in one place because fabric wouldn't move or your stitch wouldn't move? This is not the foot you want to use for decorative stitching. That's why we call this, why I call this segment stitches and or feet and stitches, okay? Because the foot goes with the proper stitch. So the standard sewing foot is not what you want to use. You want to use what's called a decorative sewing foot. A lot of your machines will come with this. Sometimes you see it as plastic like this, right? And what you're going to see is underneath, hard to see, hard to tell. It's hard to see with this particular foot, but this has a groove all the way to the back. There we go. That's a good angle. Can you see that groove if I do that? That groove now allows you to slide right over those decorative stitches. So that's why it's called the decorative sewing foot, is because it is made specifically for that and has that great groove in the back. Again, if you were sewing though on a regular piece of fabric like this, with this foot, you're going to get puckers because the fabric pulls up underneath in that groove. That's why we have to change feet for the stitches. All right, so again, decorative sewing foot truly is for decorative stitching. And this is the one that came with my machine, was this one. There are a couple other different styles. I have to admit, this one is my favorite one. And it looks very similar, but can you see that there's nothing here? It's called an open toe foot. Maybe if I do that, can you see how there's nothing there? So when I'm stitching, nothing gets in my way and I can see exactly what's going on. So that's a wonderful foot. There's also a metal open toe foot if you prefer metal feet. But again, big difference. Decorative sewing feet have the groove in the back. all the way. This one, you can really see the difference between a groove and a standard sewing foot that does not, so standard foot doesn't have that groove. Right? So, all right, I'm gonna come back for just a minute and see. I see, I'm smiling because I gotta tell you, someone just said we need to repeat this over and over. The good thing is it is recorded, so you will be able to, you know, look at it later and that sort of thing. But basically, guys, those 2 feet will get you through a lot, right? And those are 2 feet that usually come with your machines. Again, depends on the machine, depends on what you have. If you don't have a decorative sewing foot and you want to do decorative stitching, you need one. Otherwise, I want you to be successful, right? So again, it's a very great tool for you. So that is kind of a neat thing. So the 2 feet I just talked about, one standard sewing foot, and someone asked about the Sew Easy foot is the one with the guide. So that's the one with the guide that helps you. But both of those are standard feet for regular sewing. The second foot is the decorative sewing foot that has the groove in the back for decorative stitches. And again, those open toe feet are very helpful. Okay, so those open toe feet are very helpful. All right, so the next foot that I want to talk about, or feet I want to talk about, I think these are in your, trying to keep myself settled here, everybody. You know, you have a plan. I am hopefully hitting my plan today for you all. And I tried to make it everything easy for me. So what I did is I just put things in order here. So let's go back. And the next foot we're going to talk about actually is the zipper foot. And this one's a little harder to see, but see this little zipper foot? It's kind of an odd looking foot, right? And the reason why a zipper foot is a little bit odd looking is it's going to slide on one side. See how that's kind of on one side? So I've got a groove over here. I got an area to sew over there. Or, there we go. Or the other side of your zipper. So it goes on either side. So what that allows you to do, I prepped a little bit here. This may not look like anything yet to you, and I'm sure it doesn't. What I did is, here's my zipper, right? So when you're putting in, this is just a center zipper. And Bethany, I know you did another little bit when you talked about zippers and how to put in zippers on Michael's. So guys, that is also there for you. So that's really pretty cool. But when you put in a zipper like this, all I did is, this is how a centered zipper would go in. You'd have your 5/8 inch seam, you'd baste down here and you'd baste your zipper in place. But you're going to sew from the front. So how in the world do you know how to keep yourself even? And that is with your zipper foot, because you're going to place that zipper foot on either side. And you can then, for certain machines, you can move your needle to a different place. So really, one side or the other. So like this one, I would be sewing on this side of my zipper. Sorry, I know my hands got in the way on that. And then I flip it over and now I'm sewing on the other side of my zipper. That's how the zipper foot works, is it goes one side or the other, right? So one side or the other, which I think is really cool. The other zipper foot, now I'm not going to sew this in because again, Bethany, I think she just put in the class in the chat. So this is, she's already put in the how to sew zippers class. So if you have interest about zippers, the presser foot, this is the normal presser foot, but there's also a zipper foot that is what is called an invisible zipper foot. And I know some of you maybe have tried to put in invisible zippers. I always struggle with invisible zippers, but the invisible zipper is different. And what needs to happen is these teeth get pulled up and you're sewing right along the edge of the teeth, sorry, right along the edge of the teeth. And that's what the invisible zipper foot does, is it actually flips the teeth over so you can sew it in the proper way. So check out the class that Bethany did, and you'll be able to see a little bit about how to put in zippers. So that's really great. But
Hey,
the
Sonny.
zipper foot, again, it looks different, but you're going to put it on one side for one side of your zipper, the other side for the other side of the zipper. Okay, so that kind of makes sense for you now. And that zipper foot, again, most machines come with that zipper foot. So that's a good one to know.
Hey, Sonny, I
More-
have a question
Sure.
that we've gotten a couple times, so I thought I might have you put it
Yeah.
on camera. What are some of the pros and cons or the differences between using plastic versus metal feet?
Yeah, that's so I think you all heard Bethany, but plastic versus metal, it's one of those. I'm smiling a little bit because it feels a little controversial, but it really isn't. Some really it boils down. I just wanted to take a moment because it really boils down to personal preference, everybody. I personally like the plastic foot because I can see things a little better, especially with the open toe, right? That's my personal preference. Some people feel like metal feet give more stability. And so if that is your preference, guys, use what you think is best. For normal sewing, the metal feet are more common, so that's what I'm going to use. For again, the decorative sewing, you often will see the plastic feet. Both work well. It just really is a personal preference. And I know that maybe not what you want to hear, but it really is what you like. And the plastic feet give you a little more visibility. That's really the big difference in that. Okay. All right. So I do want to show were a couple other feet, but what I really want to show you is a foot that I bet most of you have. And then we'll have to conclude for the time because I don't want to run too far over, but most of you probably have this foot and you look at it and you go, what in the world is that for? I did the first few times, really. This little foot is what is called the button sew-on foot. I never sew a button on by hand anymore. Never. I always sew it on by machine, unless there is a caveat to that. And that is if the button you have is a shank button, you cannot sew it on by machine. You have to do that by hand. But basically when you're I've been putting off mending a shirt of mine because it was missing buttons on the cuff. So I finally said, okay, find those buttons that were missing and let's put it on. This is the foot I used. Okay, so let's check this out. There are a couple things. So here's my button that I'm going to use, and then my fabric. There are a couple things you need to know when you are using the button sew-on foot and when you're putting buttons on by machine. The first thing that I really make sure you have a little bit of stabilizer. I went ahead and used an interfacing for this when I'm sewing on a button, because if this really was a garment I was making, I would be able to, I would have stabilizer, or I would have, a certain amount of interfacing in there for that. So that's important. If your machine has a feed dog drop, whether it's in the back or in the front, you should use that because you don't want the machine to move when you are putting on a button. My Singer M3400 actually does not have, I want to make sure I'm doing this in the right way, does not have a feed dog drop, but it does have a feed dog cover. So I'm going to go ahead and snap on that cover. And then before I start sewing, I do want to pull my bobbin thread up through the cover. Did you all see that? I don't want that to be underneath the cover. I want to make sure that's up. So you definitely want to either have a feed dog cover or, pardon me, or drop your feed dogs. All right. So that's really, really important for that. We're going to use a zigzag stitch. And then depending upon your needle, or excuse me, not needle. I have needles on the brain today, everybody. Depending upon your button will depend upon, and where the holes are in the button will depend upon how wide your width should be. So, just to try and keep my hand a little bit out of the way. Make sure I get this back in there evenly. Go ahead and put my presser foot down. I don't know that I'm even, but we'll find out. And hopefully, yeah, you can see. So I'm a little too big on this, wide on my, and you all see how I'm using my hand wheel. And I'm making sure that this is aligned properly. And that needle goes in my first hole and then my second hole. Can you see that? I know it's hard to see. Maybe if I zoom in, I'm going to try zooming in just slightly more. So you can see. So I'm just, the first couple I do by hand just to make sure. And then I simply let her go. And your button is sewn on. That is like the best thing in the world, everybody, because now I'm done. I didn't have to find a needle and thread. There it is, all finished. Isn't that cool? I just think that's so cool. And what I do like to do though, when I get done with this, right? When I get done with this, is I do like to pull my threads to the back. This is where if you have a pin or a needle, I do pull that thread to the back, if at all possible. At least 3 of them. Can you see that? So I've got three little pieces. And then I'm just going to tie my knot on the back. Okay.
Tony, we had a question about if you needed a little slack under your button for like a thicker coat, can you still use the button foot to sew on a button?
So I think you all heard that. Yes, certainly you can. What I do with that is I will go to my kitchen and I'll get myself a toothpick. And I'll actually put a toothpick right above here. And then I go ahead and sew over the toothpick. And then I've got the slack that you're talking about, right? But then what I'll do is instead of pulling to the back, and you'll see this, let me zoom out just a little bit now, since I'm all way far in. But now that you've got this sewn, instead of pulling your thread to the back, I will pull the thread inside between the button here and then do a bunch of wraps. So then I'll wrap like around this edge and tie above. And that gives you a great shank and gives you more space for that button. I hope that makes sense. All right. That's a great question. Really, really great question. Any other questions? We hit on, my time is up, so that's why I'm saying that. We hit on a lot of different things, really great questions about needles. Use the proper foot for the stitch. I hope that that makes sense to you, because I want you to be successful, right? We all want to be successful when we're sewing. So I think it's really key that we use the foot for the stitch. I think that's really important. With needles, I'm just going to reiterate, there are a couple things. Style of needle for the type of fabric, style of needle for the type of fabric, and then weight of fabric is the size of the needle. So those numbers, okay? So those are a couple things. Change your needles, everybody. Change them every 8 to 10 hours or every project. It's super important. I've heard horror stories of people never changing their needles and then they don't have success. So we want you to be successful. So remember, next week, we've already put things in the chat, but remember next week, Bethany's going to be showing you where to store your needles and make a little needle keeper. The following week, Amanda's going to be doing things with jeans. So your question about how to go over a jeans hem or a jean seam, she'll be talking about that. And then Becky's going to be starting a 3-part series on quilting. So we got a lot of stuff coming, everybody. So Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us, and hope you had a good class and learned a couple things today. Take care.